We have breaking news. At any moment, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster will announce the temporary replacement for Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator's death has rocked the state of South Carolina and, of course, the U.S. Senate and the nation. We're going to have more on the senator's cause of death and who President Donald Trump wants to replace the late senator in just a moment. Plus, Senate Majority Leader John Thune joins me to discuss Senator Graham. And as this shocking news comes out of South Carolina, Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell has broken his silence on his own health. Find out what Senator McConnell said about his health. That's later this hour. I'm Greta Van Susteren. This is The Record. As you know, Republican South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham died on Saturday after returning from a trip overseas to Ukraine. The medical examiner of the District of Columbia has released his preliminary findings as to the cause of death. He reports that Graham suffered, quote, an aortic dissection due to arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease, end quote. An aortic dissection is a tear in the inner wall of the aorta, which allows blood to separate the layers of the artery wall. And at any minute, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster is set to announce Senator Graham's temporary replacement. Earlier today, President Trump took to Truth Social to say, quote, I recommended to Governor Henry McMaster Lindsey Graham's wonderful sister Darlene to serve as interim senator from the great state of South Carolina. This would be a fabulous tribute to Lindsey, who loved her dearly, end quote. For the most part, the late senator's sister, Darlene Graham Nordone, has stayed out of the political spotlight, but she did occasionally make public appearances supporting her brother.
I can remember the day my father passed away, standing in the living room of that house, absolutely scared to death. And Lindsey wrapped his arms around me and promised me that he would always be there for me and always take care of me. And I can assure you he's done that. He has never let me down.
Graham first came to Washington in 1994 as a member of the House of Representatives, and then he was elected to the Senate in 2002. Here are just a few highlights of the late senator.
You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics.
As long as 12 states have sanctuary policy, they'll keep coming. Unfortunately, you won't be president forever. These magnets of illegal immigration have to go. There is no upside to sanctuary city unless you're a complete radical nut job.
Mr. Zuckerberg, you and the companies before us, I know you don't mean it to be so, but you have blood on your hands. You have a product. You have a product that's killing people.
You've had a long career in politics.
Not long enough.
You obviously want to serve at least 6 more years. You're passionate about a lot of these foreign policy issues. What do you want your legacy to be, especially when it comes to foreign policy and national security?
That I spoke up, shared my thoughts, creatively put together coalitions that moved the ball.
Earlier, I spoke with South Dakota Republican Senator and the Senate Majority Leader John Thune. Senator, nice to speak to you, sir.
Nice to be with you. Thanks, Greta.
Senator, we all have Senator Lindsey Graham stories, but you go so far back with him. I mean, your whole life in the House and in the Senate has been with Senator Graham. You came into the House 2 years after, I think, and 2 years in the Senate, 2 years after getting into the Senate. So, you know, I assume it's very, very personal to you. It's not just business.
It is. It's a huge loss for the country, Greta. I think, as we all know, Lindsey was a bigger-than-life impact player in terms of the international scene, domestic politics, legislation, policy, things he was passionate about. But like you said, there are a lot of us who knew him as a close friend. He was that to me. He was a trusted advisor, somebody I could go to and give me straight advice and counsel, and just spent a lot of time through the years. And I'm really, really incredibly sad and still in shock. I think like a lot of people are, but we're doing our best to process it. And you know, we just have to make the best of a situation and do everything we can to honor and give tribute to Lindsey and his life and his impact and just the difference he made here as a public servant through all these years.
Well, I think it's fair to say he died with his boots on. He was in Ukraine just the other day, and he wasn't sick for a long time. It wasn't like a lingering illness. It's just that he went from doing what he liked most to suddenly leaving us.
Right. Yeah, you know, in what more, if you think about Lindsey and the number of times he's been to Ukraine and the passion he had to ensure that Ukraine was a free and independent nation, and the relationships he built not only there but around the world in support of freedom and democracy. He is an incredibly impactful, consequential person in terms of all these issues, and I can't think of a more, you know, being in Ukraine and unfortunately what happened in his passing, but no more fitting tribute than to go out doing what he was passionate about, and that is trying to help countries secure their freedom and democracy other places around the world.
Well, he lived such a simple life, too. I mean, even like, he didn't get rich on Capitol Hill. You know, sometimes there's been criticism of people making a lot of money on Capitol Hill. He certainly did not do that. We're going to have to interrupt for a moment. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster is about to announce his choice to fill Senator Lindsey Graham's seat.
Through grit, determination, and character for his state, for his country, and for his world. Lindsey Graham recognized the greatness of America and her obligations to a dangerous world. Lindsey Graham recognized the seriousness of his work, but also the value of humor and a lighthearted spirit. Lindsey Graham understood the hopes, dreams, and needs of his state and delivered for his state every time. Presidents, paupers, famous or forgotten, he treated us all the same. We have seen him attack evil and injustice and embrace friendship and the common good with equal fervor and strength. Yes, we are going to miss Lindsey, but we will always remember his quickness, his laugh, and what he has done for us and the world. As he described himself, this poor boy from a little town in South Carolina. Today, under the law, it's my duty and honor to name someone to serve in the place of this irresistible man, this irreplaceable man, this extraordinary man for the remainder of his term. Lindsey took care of his little sister in years long departed. It's my honor to ask his little sister, Darlene Graham, to finish his work for him now. And by the way, Darlene, I don't know if I told you, but after we spoke on the phone in the wee hours of Sunday morning, and you agreed to serve through tears, earlier, I had wondered what you would say, and I was humbled by your quickness to see the duty that you had to serve. And I called the president afterwards, and he thought it was a great idea. And I'm sure that everyone here does as well. Darlene, little sister, come forward, please.
Thank you, Governor, and just bear with me as I try to get through this. But first, I just want to say one thing I've never heard Lindsey described as is irresistible. So, okay, we'll just start with that. But first, I would like to thank everyone who has called and reached out over the past couple of days. I can't tell you how much it's meant to me and our family. I know Lindsey was loved and respected by many, and I greatly appreciate the memories and even the funny stories that have been shared. These shared experiences, along with our faith, have gotten us through these past 2 very difficult days. Next, I want to thank the governor for selecting me to serve the remainder of Lindsey's term. It is such an honor. Lindsey has always been there for me, and now I will be there for him. My brother was the most amazing person, outstanding leader, and just a genuinely good man. He was kind and considerate and loved by his family dearly. As I think everyone would agree, Lindsey worked harder than anyone. He worked nonstop to make our state, country, and world better. He loved his family and loved serving this state and our country. He dedicated his life to our country. It is such a privilege to get to finish some of his important work, and I promise to work hard over the next several months to support the President and carry forward the efforts of my brother on behalf of the citizens of South Carolina and the United States. I know Lindsey thought the world of his staff and colleagues, and with their support, I feel confident. I think this is what Lindsey would have wanted, and I plan to honor him in this way. Now to Lindsey, I miss you more than I can even put into words, but I'm going to do this. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes this ceremony. Thank you. This way.
You've been watching South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster just announced Darlene Graham Nardone will replace her brother, Senator Lindsey Graham. Former White House Chief of Staff and former North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And, you know, there's so much of a backstory to this because Lindsey Graham actually adopted her because their parents died when he was 21 and I think she was 12. And there are no other siblings, no other family. And he promised to take care of her, and he did. And now she's assuming her I guess, payback to him.
Well, it's not just honoring him, but it's really representing him in the legacy that he leaves for the state of South Carolina. One of the interesting things with Governor McMaster's appointing her, you know, it's a 6-month sprint to the end until January 3rd, when someone else will obviously run and get sworn in. That being said, it's probably more like 6 weeks, Greta. It's 6 weeks and 6 key votes that she'll have to take. She's got a real experienced staff. Obviously, Lindsey has a great staff on Capitol Hill. You know, Lindsey and I were chatting a few weeks ago in the airport headed to D.C., and he was really just so grateful. You wouldn't have imagined that this shock that came to all of us on Sunday would have really been just around the corner. But we're not promised tomorrow, and yet his sister will carry on that legacy. Probably the other interesting thing will be who queues up to actually file next week, and so you'll see a mad sprint toward the middle of August when his name will be replaced on the ballot by whomever gets the confidence of the South Carolina people.
Well, first of all, I think, you know, what's so different about Lindsey Graham's death, Senator Graham, is that he wasn't sick. I mean, at least we didn't know he was. You know, it's not like he was lingering in the hospital for weeks. So, I mean, that's what has been particularly shocking about this. But is there any chance, I mean, do you know anything about whether or not his sister would want to run and have, you know, and seek the election long-term beyond this special appointment?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a chance generally with Governor McMaster's. I would think that he was probably looking at convincing her to do something on a temporary basis. But as the headlines and reports are already talking about, people are queuing up to file for this. But listen, one of the things you mentioned that Lindsey was not sick. In fact, if we had thought of a headline of somebody passing away, we wouldn't have necessarily put him in the top 3 as it relates to senators that may have health challenges. That also is interesting. Lindsey, for those of us that knew him, he was, whether you liked his politics or not, he was one of the funniest guys you would ever actually be with. He could laugh and make you smile and joke around, even on some of the most serious things, to kind of lighten the load. But I recall a conversation that I had with him many years ago where we had 3 or 4 of us that were either members of Congress or senators sitting around. One of them was saying, well, we need to do something different. I think it's time for me to do something different. And Lindsey, in true Lindsey Graham fashion, said, well, this is the best job in the world. Why would you want to do anything else? Where would you go? And that's really the way that he dedicated his life. Full-time employment for him was not like other senators. He would get on a plane and fly to Ukraine or anywhere else. But I think that if the odds makers were out there, it would not necessarily be on his sister running to replace him long term.
Not to take away from him and from his fans and all his accomplishments, but what a city we live in. It oftentimes takes death for all of a sudden people to sort of reach across the aisle or even reach within the party to start recognizing that, you know, that people want to do things honorably for the United States. It's just they may have different views on how to get there, and we have limited amount of money to achieve the many things that we'd like to do around, you know, around the nation and around the world. But it always takes death for all of a sudden people to think that, you know, to look at other people and think maybe they weren't such a bad guy after all.
Well, obviously, death has a way of shocking our system, whether it's the death of a colleague like Lindsey or the death of a family member. It can many times really create a shock, and people do things, you know, really look at perspectives very differently, Greta, so your point's well taken. Sadly, in Washington, D.C., that doesn't last long. We know that from, you know, during 9/11, everybody was coming together and singing Kumbaya, but that lasted about 72 hours. Hopefully we'll get some things done that were a priority of the president, a priority to Lindsey Graham, and that we'll see this last a little longer.
Well, I've been around this town long enough and in enough green rooms at enough networks is that, honestly, I've met politicians on both sides of the aisle, and I don't know any politician either side who didn't come to Washington to try to do things better. And I often think that we journalists sometimes are part of the problem, you know, trying to stir things up and create problems between rather than some solutions. But that's just my thought of the day. Mark Meadows, thank you, sir.
Great to be with you, Greta. Take care.
Coming up, more reaction to Senator Graham's death. Majority Leader John Thune. We're going to play the rest of that interview. Plus, are we alone? Another batch of UFO files released. Dr. Phil joins me to discuss that when the record continues.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
There's no way a mouthwash can prevent bad breath for 12 hours.
You're right, Bill. Mouthwash can't, but this is dentist-developed Smart Mouth Activated Mouthwash.
Activated?
Yeah, if your mouthwash isn't activated, it's not Smart Mouth. See, this plus this activate for 12 hours of bad breath prevention, guaranteed. Try it. You won't have bad breath in the morning. Good night, Bill.
Get dentist-developed Smart Mouth today. It's the smarter mouthwash, available at these fine retailers.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
I'm going to take you back to the interview with Senate Majority Leader John Thune on the death of Senator Lindsey Graham. Well, he lived such a simple life, too. I mean, even like he didn't get rich on Capitol Hill. You know, sometimes there's been criticism of people making a lot of money on Capitol Hill. He certainly did not do that. He grew up at age 21. His parents were both dead. His father had just died. He had to raise his sister, who was then 11. They lived in the back of a bar, and they moved to a trailer and then to a home. I mean, he lived a real American life.
He did, and it was a very hard-scrabble background, a very tough background. And you think of how he managed to take care of his younger sister, who was 9 or so years younger and still a teenager at the time when they lost both parents, and, you know, what he had to do to support her through the years, and then his rise through, you know, the South Carolina legislature, then in the House of Representatives, and now, of course, the Senate, all the things that he's accomplished through the years. He was somebody who was a huge difference maker. If you look at people who serve causes greater than themselves, Lindsey comes to mind, pops up. He would be first of mind to everybody, I think, anybody who served with him or been around him. But his background, coming from that to what he has achieved and accomplished here, is a great tribute not only to him as an individual, but also just to the you know, the circumstances around his upbringing. Obviously, he was raised in a way that he had a passion to make a difference, and he certainly did until the very end.
And of course, I don't think he could be prouder than, first of all, the whole nation's got flags at half-staff, and now his sister will, I mean, I can't think of anything he'd like more than have his sister take the oath of office.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, Greta. His sister, what a great tribute to Lindsey. What a great extension of his legacy. And obviously, there would be nothing, I think, that'd be more meaningful to him than to know that his sister was going to be able to continue on after him.
Have you spoken to President Trump at all since Senator Graham passed?
I haven't. We've been trying to connect here, and probably will yet today, I assume. But I know that the president, of course, had an incredibly close relationship with Lindsey through the years. They had a very direct relationship in which they could say things to each other that perhaps others can't, and still be friends. And that's a remarkable tribute to Lindsey as well, and to the president, that they were able to get along on that level and do really consequential things for the country at times, and, you know, even when there were differences that existed between them with respect to the path forward and in the direction we might be headed at the time. But both are people who have strong views and are passionate about making a profound difference for the future of the country. Both have, and in many cases because they were able to work together so constructively.
Can you just, and I don't mean to pry too much, but can you peel back the curtain a little bit and tell us how you learned? And then I assume that you've been getting 1,000 phone calls from everybody. I mean, even everybody in the media wants to talk to you about this. But, you know, can you tell me how you learned? And, you know, I mean, I know when I heard, I said, are you serious? You know, I mean, I didn't, you know, who would believe something like that?
Well, it was one of those circumstances, of course, when it happened, and you know, getting a call from a member of my staff saying we got really bad news for you, and I, you know, I'm like, what? You kind of bracing yourself. I had no idea. I mean, I couldn't have been more shocked, and like I said, it's still sinking in. I think a lot of us are still processing the news, but you know, and then I just think as you work through this, you know, I talked yesterday to the governor of South Carolina, talked to Lindsey's sister Darlene, and a number of my colleagues throughout the day, friends who were watching, observing all this. I think we're all dealing with what is just a really sad circumstance, tragic circumstance, huge loss for the country, and certainly something that it's going to take a while for a lot of us to work through. I can't imagine a United States Senate without Lindsey Graham. I really can't. I mean, his his enthusiasm for the job, his energy, his passion for the work, his belief in what makes this country great and wanting to be able to share that with other places around the world, and his sense of humor. I mean, I tell people this, and I mean it sincerely. There aren't a whole lot of people that can make me laugh. Lindsey could always make me laugh, and he always he had a sharp wit. He used it in a way to communicate important principles and to get across his argument in ways that are very winsome, and I think he won a ton of people through the years just because of the power of that personality and the sharpness of his intellect. He was very gifted, not only as a with a great intellect, but also as a great communicator, and those are skill sets that in this business work really, really well. But he used them effectively to get his point across, to win people over, and to get things done for this country. And for that, I think we can all be grateful.
Indeed, we can. Of course, this city, life is very fragile, and periodically we get these horrible jolts to institutions that we've known for so long and have just taken for granted, and that's our friendships here in this town. Senator, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Greta. Good being with you.
Coming up, what's next for the American people? An unexpected new senator, another senator out sick and maybe seriously so, and a legislative logjam? That when the record continues.
The summer of flooring savings at Lumber Liquidators ends soon, but not before more deals drop to help you finish your next project. Save over 20, 30, 40, 50% on hundreds of varieties, like waterproof luxury vinyl plank from 69 cents a square foot, or 15 types of 5mm waterproof vinyl plank click flooring starting at $1.99 a square foot, plus unfinished solid hardwood just 99 cents a square foot. Hurry, sale ends July 21st. Start shopping nationwide or online at lumberliquidators.com.
If your roof looks like this, your home is at risk. A new metal roof from Erie Home withstands wind up to 120 miles per hour and hail up to 2 inches, all backed by a 50-year warranty. Call now for 50% off installation. Get your free estimate now.
What if losing a pair of sunglasses was actually fine? That's why we built Shady Rays. Every pair of Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection, but no matter what happens, whether you drop them in the lake, a wave gets them, they're covered with lost and broken protection.
Now tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring. Understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been a physician for 4 decades. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time, and Fatty 15 is one product that actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. A brilliant veterinarian realized that dolphins get disease much like humans. She looked at what predisposed to those problems, isolated the molecule, gave it to the animals, they didn't get the problem. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. Cell health equals physical health. That's why I take Fatty 15.
As America's largest private funder of brain aneurysm research, we support AI that enables earlier detection and saves lives. 1 in 50 Americans has a brain aneurysm, and ruptures strike without warning. Our early investment supported research that helped tech companies develop AI tools, enabling physicians to find aneurysms before they rupture. AI helps doctors act sooner and accelerates life-saving progress. Now is not the time to lose our competitive edge.
My dad has never been in better shape. He had a stroke and passed away. He had a life insurance policy. Ethos.com. In 10 minutes, you can be covered with life insurance.
Check your price today
at ethos.com.
We have a new United States Senator, or we will as soon as she takes the oath of office. One thing for certain, Senator Lindsey Graham would be enormously proud watching his sister Darlene take the oath of office. Many of you might not know this, but Senator Lindsey Graham raised Darlene when their parents died when he was 21 and she was about 11. President Trump backed the choice of Graham's sister as his replacement. Under South Carolina law, the governor appoints a temporary replacement to fill the empty seat until January. That is when Lindsey Graham's term was set to end. Graham was up for re-election this year. He won the state primary last month and was a favorite to win the general election in November. With his sudden death, a special primary election will have to take place. The GOP will need to find a new candidate. According to state law, the special election must occur on Tuesday, August 11. Former Special Assistant President Biden, former Press Secretary of First Lady Jill Biden, Michael LaRosa, and former White House Deputy Press Secretary under President Trump, Harrison Fields, joins me. Michael, first to you. You know, it's the Democrats are looking for a candidate up in Maine, and now Republicans for one in South Carolina.
Yes. They seem to be a little bit more organized in South Carolina than they are in Maine right now. What
are they going to do in Maine?
They're going to have a convention. And there's about 601 delegates who are representing about 16 of the counties in Maine. And it's not going to satisfy everyone. It's probably the fairest solution at this point. It's in coordination and in compliance with the party rules after something like this happens. So that's what we're going to get, a candidate selected by delegates.
Harrison, South Carolina, it's pretty much a given to be a Republican seat. I mean, it'd be a surprise if it went to a Democratic senator in November. But there are a lot of people who are lining up for it. I sort of think that, I have no information, but that Lindsey Graham's sister may throw her hat in the ring.
She may figure that the next 6 months, filling the seat of her late brother, is fulfilling enough to her to want to continue the job.
But she's got to decide fast.
She does have to decide fast. I think she's at a point in her life where this may make sense for her. Being in political office, she knows as a sibling of an elected official, it's not an easy job. But if she's got that Graham mentality that carried Lindsey Graham through his historic career, she may be very well suited for the job.
Senator McConnell, he's been sick for a while.
Yeah.
And we're finally hearing that he had some sort of pneumonia or something. I don't know about you, but between Senator McConnell and the congressman from New Jersey, not telling the American people when they are, what is wrong with them is really unfair to the American people. Not that, I hate to delve into someone's medical records, but when you are a politician, you're a different animal.
I agree, and it's as somebody from the Biden world, I'm sure people are thinking, it's rich for him to say that, but I always argued for more transparency, for oversharing when it comes to anything that you're not intentionally trying to hide. If there's nothing to hide, then there is no reason not to be transparent with the public. They put you there, you ultimately answer to them, they're the boss. They should know why you're not going to work.
The election come November, Republicans seem to be worried about keeping the House.
Historically speaking, no one should be surprised that one of the chambers of Congress would leave, right? This is what usually happens. But if you look at the map and if you look at the data, we are actually well positioned to hold on to the House. The margin may be small, but the numbers are still in our favor. And then if you look to 2030, which I know is a long time away, reapportionment, we're going to look even better. So I think a Republican majority is more common than not going forward. We've got a lot of work to do. We have a story to tell. This is why we have to pass historic legislation like the Save America Act to continue the Republican efforts to get people out to vote. We have not, I'll be critical of my party, we have not done a good enough job on the policy front to get our voters out. We have to do a better job.
Harrison, I did say, maybe you're right, but I tell you, it looks rather grim for the Republicans right now if the election were held today. Michael, I suppose that you...
Yeah, who knows? I think
is Harrison possibly right that...
Well, they're hoping for what we had in the Biden White House during our midterm, which was completely unexpected. We had a historic overperformance that kept the Republican margins from a 1994 kind of thumping to, I think, 8 or 9 seats, which was huge. It was the biggest overperformance a party had since 1932, and we expanded our majority in the Senate, and President Biden, unfortunately, took the wrong message from that his first 2 years were validated, and so he ran for re-election. However, they are probably hoping for the same outcome, that it's a historic overperformance that sort of runs against conventional wisdom, which is that
what helps our case is that they're running literal communists. It's not just secluded to one area of the country.
And by the way,
this is the identity of the Democratic Party. So this is what we're up against in terms of policy, because they have no solutions. Name me a Democratic solution. You'll probably be able to help me. Name a Democratic solution right now, other than we want to get Trump. That's not a policy solution. The American people want to know how you are going to make their lives better.
I think, Harrison, one of the issues, though, is this war, the war. I don't know what's going to happen, a long time. But turnout is the issue within both parties.
Events change things. However, he's not wrong. That was our strategy in 2022, to disqualify all of their candidates. And so we turned candidate quality. Mitch McConnell himself came out and said, when you have a Kerry Lake, when you have an Oz in Pennsylvania, when you have, Herschel Walker in Georgia, they sort of were emblematic of the point we were trying to make, that these people are unfit to be in the Senate. And we made that case, and we ultimately won, and that's going to be their job.
Well, a lot can happen. It's only July, and November, a lot can happen. Anyway, Michael LaRosa, Harrison Fields, thank you both.
Good to see you.
Coming up, what's the latest on the release of UFO files? Dr. Phil has a lot to say about this, and he joins me next. That when the record continues.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
Students today face unique challenges. Adolescence can be confusing, complicated, and scary, with lots of change, a ton of pressure, and a complex world around us. When it comes to improving youth mental health, we need a comprehensive solution, and students need to be a part of the conversation. If we don't get this right, we'll miss a critical opportunity to make real change for generations to come. Get involved today at empowerourfuturecoalition.com.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, owner of Immuno 150, and I'm disgusted. Now, we do not sell on eBay, but 240 counterfeiters are offering counterfeit Immuno 150 on eBay. We copied our bottle label and even our website. Some of their junk has been known to contain talcum powder, baking flour, even ground up dirt. Zero nutritional value. None of it contains the 70 minerals that made Immuno 150 famous. These counterfeiters are after your credit card, and thousands of credit cards have already been hacked after they were used to purchase counterfeit Immuno 150. Now, we do sell on Amazon, but be careful, because some counterfeiters come on there too. The counterfeit websites look just exactly like our website. So to be safe, I suggest that you order Immuno 150 by scanning the QR code on the screen or by calling our toll-free number on the screen. Do this so you know you've got the original Immuno 150 with 70 plant-derived minerals instead of talcum powder or dirt. Thank you and God bless.
Where's the admission desk at your hospital? You may need it sooner than you think. It's the middle of the night and you, your spouse, or your child is sick, high fever, can't keep anything down, and getting worse. Now you're waiting in the ER, and everyone gets seen before you. And when I finally see you and order prescriptions, you still have to wait for your pharmacy to open and hope they have what I prescribed. This is the medical emergency kit. It's stocked with essential medications, including amoxicillin, generic Z-Pak, and ivermectin. Now you have the right medications when you need them. And it's why I and so many of my colleagues have medical emergency kits. It's like having an urgent care and pharmacy in your home. Just fill out a brief online medical intake and your kit, prescribed by a licensed provider, is shipped to your door. Here's how to order.
Order your kit now and save $45. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news. That's urgentcarekit.com/news.
Hello, this is Franklin Graham. Samaritan's Purse is responding to the deadly earthquakes that struck Venezuela on the 24th of June. Two back-to-back earthquakes. Hundreds and thousands of people have been injured. Thousands of people are missing. The people are hurting. Samaritan's Purse has taken a field hospital. We've got doctors and nurses, and we're responding right now to the people that have lost so much. We've taken water purification. We've taken solar lights, a lot of things. We need your prayers and we need your help. God bless you.
More files are out. No, not the Epstein files, the UFO files. On Friday, the Pentagon released its fourth batch of UFO documents. The document dump is 40 files, includes 19 videos. One of the videos is from 2025 and was recorded by the U.S. military in the East China Sea. It shows what looks like a six-pointed star, and the new release is part of President Trump's directive to the Department of War to declassify information. Dr. Phil McGraw joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And what is the big secret, and what does the government have to gain from keeping all this stuff all these years a big secret?
Well, Greta, thanks for having me. It's good to talk to you. That's a big question, is the why. And, one of the things that is important is that we do inform the American people about this stuff, because a lack of information creates anxiety. It creates people saying, what's going on and why are they hiding this information from us, which they've been doing for almost 80 years now. And not only have they been hiding information, they've been misdirecting. I mean, we now see in these documents dating back to 1947 where they've been actively debunking things that they know are true. So not only have they been hiding the information, they've been saying, look, nothing to see here, folks, when in fact they've had major budget activity within agencies investigating things while telling the American people there's nothing here to see, when in fact there is, as we now know.
Well, I don't get it. Why do they get to know and we don't? I mean, we're the taxpayers. That's what I don't understand. And 79, 80 years is just, to me, is beyond anything. I just don't. I don't get the arrogance of the government. I don't know, what do they think? We're all going to go, we're all going to start running, jumping off buildings or what? But I don't know.
Well, here's the thing.
By the way, what is it? What? Go ahead.
No, I want to just underline and amplify what you're saying. When these people get elected to government, they were in regular jobs just like everybody else before they were sworn into office. They weren't imbued with any wisdom or vision before they took that job. Why would we substitute their judgment for our own? Look, we're not entitled to know strategy and tactics in a war action or even an economic or crisis management situation. That's not what we're talking about here. This is something that could reorder the entire universe, human exceptionalism. This impacts people's religious values and belief systems, everything. And we are entitled to know this and certainly not be misdirected about it.
What this looks like, what I'm looking at on the screen now, I take it that some of the video looks like a wind field of some sort, windmill field. Are we alone? I mean, have you any thoughts on this, or even what the six-point star-like thing is?
Well, here's the thing. I'm so glad you're asking that straight-up question. What we know for sure, I'm convinced of this to the core of my soul, there are unexplained phenomena. And let me be clear about this. There are things for which we have no technology to explain what we are seeing on gun cameras look, what they've allowed to be shown are things where you've got some guy that's too drunk to fish showing up with a gimme cap on, and he's saying, I was abducted and anally probed. We've seen all of those year after year. What they've suppressed are legitimate reporters with instrumentation, gun cameras on fighter planes, radar, things where we have seen objects that cannot be denied that are doing things we don't have the technology to do, moving at speeds we don't have the ability to move at, going what appears to be something like 40,000 miles an hour, making right-hand turns which would create G-forces we can't withstand. We can't move in that speed or change directions in that radical a way. So we don't have the ability to do that. None of our enemies have the ability to do that. So when we say unexplained aerial phenomena, that's what we mean. We don't have that capacity. They don't leave heat signatures. They don't leave any of the things that our propulsion systems have. So where's it coming from? We don't know that.
Well, I hope that they continue to study, and I hope, though, they decide to be transparent and let us all in on the story. Anyway, Dr. Phil, always nice to see you, sir.
Well, good to be here, and I'm talking about it because I want to deal with the psychological aspects so people don't freak out about this stuff and they understand that there's going to be a way to deal with this. Everybody stay calm. We'll get the information.
Thank you, sir. And an 18-year-old is found dead after a July 4th boat trip with his friends. His death is sparking grief, of course, but also racial tension and speculation. Senior correspondent John Huddy joins me. John?
Yeah, Greta, a lot of speculation. Well, Nolan Wells' parents say they're skeptical of claims that their son, who was an elite high school athlete playing college football also and a strong swimmer, accidentally drowned. Now, the 18-year-old's body was found early July 6th along the shore of Horn Island, which is about 7 miles off the Mississippi coast, more than a day after he was last seen alive. About 300 people, including many of his friends and classmates, were on the uninhabited island July 4th for the holiday weekend. Wells, a standout football player, had reportedly stayed behind, though, on that island after meeting a young woman, according to friends. But Ben Crump, the well-known civil rights attorney representing the Wells family, said that a key piece of evidence, Wells' cell phone, was ultimately retrieved by his friends, something Crump said was suspicious. However, one of Wells' friends said that they all put their phones in the boat, something like 15 phones were on the boat when they went swimming, and that Wells simply left it behind when he decided to stay on the island. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter said that Wells' friends, who are white, have been cooperative, and that foul play is not suspected, and the sheriff really emphasized and continues to emphasize that. Well, Crump posted video of an apparent argument on the island. It's hard to see and it's really hard to hear, but Wells' close friend said that he was involved in that argument, not Wells. Still, Mississippi's violent racial history is fueling speculation about the young man's death, along with a lot of speculation online and on social media. The Wells family has commissioned an independent autopsy while they await the results of the official one, which could take weeks. Now, along with Ben Crump, Reverend Al Sharpton is also speaking out for the Wells family.
What we've been told does not make sense. And being that there is lack of confidence in the local authorities, who have already, in my judgment, seemed to have mishandled where it was going.
Now, Sheriff Ledbetter said in an interview that he's upset that Sharpton and Crump are suggesting that race may have played a role in Wells' death, adding that, quote, they're trying to spin a narrative that is not there, end quote. Greta?
John Huddy, thank you. Coming up, President Trump says the blockade is back on. We have a live report from the Middle East. That when the record continues.
Back pain. When you've got it, you know it. Introducing X-Back from Copperfit, America's #1 back support brand. Our groundbreaking technology designed for compression support of your lower back and core like you've never experienced before. Engineered with our most innovative patent-pending Advanced X compression system. Evenly distributes the support across a broader surface area of your back for relief of lower back aches and pains. A super lightweight mesh fabric, ventilated to increase airflow and release excess heat, an orthopedic designed alloy support panel, and 4 built-in flexible stabilizers to help improve alignment and promote better posture. The all-new X-Back from Copperfit, the most customizable support for relief of lower back pain you will ever wear. Guaranteed or your money back. Get yours now at getxback.com or call 1-800-708-9996. Order right now and your shipping is free. Copperfit. Feel the difference.
If your flow doesn't go like it used to, if it's pee o'clock again, it could be an enlarged prostate blocking the way. The UroLift system is a minimally invasive, non-destructive treatment for men 45 and over that simply lifts the problem out of the way. Ask your urologist about the UroLift system. Most common side effects are temporary and can include discomfort when urinating, urgency, inability to control the urge, pelvic pain, and some blood in the urine. Rare side effects, including bleeding and infection, may lead to a serious outcome and may require intervention. The UroLift system for rapid symptom relief.
As a working mom, I'm always on the move. The zip-up shoulder support bra from Tommy Copper is the perfect bra for my busy life. I have to do it all, and I can wear it for anything. I love the support for my back and shoulders. From morning to night, why would I wear any other bra? Thank you, Tommy Copper.
My days are long, packed with activities. I need a bra that's comfortable and supportive.
Thanks, Tommy Copper.
I feel so confident with great posture. No matter what I'm doing, why would I wear any other bra? Thank you, Tommy Copper.
Go to TommyCopper.com and upgrade your bra today.
Today, I choose us how to screen us for colon cancer. Here, on my land, not theirs. Give me Cologuard or give me...
We can do that for you.
What, no battle?
Nope. Just a prescription.
Victory!
Cologuard is an effective and non-invasive colon cancer screening test. False positive and negative results may occur. Those at high risk should use colonoscopy. Skip the drama. Ask your provider or request Cologuard online.
We can't find a ranch style with a view.
And a mom-in-law suite.
More realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. With their expert new search tool, just search it like you'd say it.
Room for mom.
And Reba. Make it real with Realtor.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
President Trump is keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. He posted on Truth Social in part, quote, "The Hormuz Strait is open and will remain open with or without Iran," end quote. Trump also said the United States will reinstate the blockade on Iran. Middle East correspondent Zach Anders is live in Tel Aviv, where it is 11:52 p.m. Zach?
Hey, Greta, tomorrow morning, the blockade will resume the American side of the blockade. These announcements come after a weekend that pushed this conflict deeper into those dangerous waters. Iran's Revolutionary Guards struck a Cyprus flag container ship, the GHF Galaxy, for using what Tehran called an unauthorized route. Oman's maritime authority says 23 crew members were rescued. One of those crewmen still missing tonight. Search efforts ongoing. Iran's Revolutionary Guards then declared the strait closed until further notice. They've done so many times throughout this war. Tehran answered America's targeting of some 140-plus strikes in retaliation for going after this cargo vessel. They responded with strikes of their own across the Gulf. Iranian state media claims attacks on U.S. bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, Oman, and Qatar. And just today, sirens sounded for a third time in Bahrain, according to Reuters. There have been no significant damage reported and no casualties reported as a result of these Iranian missile attacks. On the diplomatic front, Iran's foreign ministry says weekend talks with Oman on a new safe passage agreement with that country failed. They blame what they're calling overt and covert pressures from the United States. And today on the streets of Tehran, residents telling local TV crews they support a return to war.
The war will definitely start again. It will start again in the Strait of Hormuz. And contrary to what they expected, we won't lose control of the strait this time.
So again, Greta, we're seeing this blockade, the American side, come back into force tomorrow morning. There's reports out of Washington that claim that behind the scenes, the U.S. officials are demanding Iran publicly declare that all lanes of the strait are open. There'll be no attacks. But it doesn't look like we're getting anywhere there, with both sides nearly at that halfway mark for the memorandum of understanding that was 60 days. It's got about 30 days left. Mediators, including Pakistan, Qatar, and Egypt, are reporting little progress. Live in Tel Aviv, Zach Anders, Newsmax.
Zach, thank you. Coming up, here's a brain teaser. Could snacking help fight fires? That video when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higby from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
The next thing that I heard was you have to have surgery immediately or you have 4 months to live.
Our world changed that day.
Every 15 seconds in America, someone like Jay hears the words, "You have cancer." But your monthly gift helps fund the cancer research that saves people's lives. Donate today, and we'll send you this free t-shirt. Cancer won't wait, and neither can we. Donate today.
This July at Renewal by Andersen. Replace your windows, your patio doors, or your entry door, and we're going to give you an amazing opportunity. You ready? Pay nothing, and I mean zero zilch nada, for 18 months. I'm talking about no deposit, no monthly payments, and no interest until January of 2028. Choosing Renewal by Andersen to replace your windows and doors makes your home worth more. 3 out of 4 real estate agents surveyed agree. Andersen products increase a home's value by at least 10%. Do the math. I think you're going to be happy. Let us show you colors, styles, and inspiration for your home. Get started by meeting with one of our design consultants by July 31st. Don't wait. Call 1-800-264-0500.
This is a bottlenose dolphin, and this is the breakthrough nutrient doctors discovered that helped dolphins age healthier. Now, over 100 peer-reviewed studies later, it can help you age healthier too. Discover how at fatty15.com.
Stop, check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring, understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
Why go on Roe? Because 1 in 4 guys experience ED. Guys, connect with a provider to find treatment that could be right for you, like fast-acting dissolvables or daily gummies. If 1 in 4 guys deal with ED, then 1 in 4 guys should go on Roe.
Your mouthwash routine just got a whole lot smarter. Use Smart Mouth Activated Morning Mouthwash with B12 for all-day bad breath prevention, guaranteed. If your mouthwash isn't activated, it's not Smart Mouth. Kickstart your morning. Get Smart Mouth Activated Mouthwash with B12.
Right now, firefighters in Colorado are battling multiple wildfires across the state, but these busy heroes are getting a boost in morale from a goat. Her name is Golden Oreo. She is a Nigerian dwarf goat. She goes by the name Goldie for short. Goldie was caught on video walking with the firefighters as they battled a fire near Colorado Springs. Where's Goldie from? She's the pet of a family in Colorado Springs, and the firefighters said she tried to help by guiding them around the mountainous terrain. She's also trying to help prevent the spread of the fire. She munches on leaves in the woods. Don't forget, I have a podcast called Greta Wire. You'll like it. It's different. You can subscribe now on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at newsmax.com/listen. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is next. Stay with Newsmax.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.